A rose bush. It's a wild rose bush, and it's huge and it hangs over. So every time I pass there, I look at this bush, and right now, I mean, in the summertime, it's covered in blooms, but right now it's gone to seed. So it's got all these bright orange seed pods all over it. So it's something that, catches my eye in this sea of green, it's colorful thing. So I'm walking back on my route, and I get to this location where this rose bush is hanging over. And suddenly something pops out from the patch of grass on my left hand side and makes an arc across my field of vision right in front of my eyes and pops onto the sidewalk on the other side. So I slow down, I back up, and I look down, bend over and look down, and there on the sidewalk is a grasshopper, a green and brown grasshopper. And I just like go nuts, right? Because I think that is the first time. And I immediately remember the conversation that I'd had a couple of days earlier. And this is the first time I've seen a grasshopper in Canada. And I'm thinking, wow, what a coincidence that we were just talking about this on the internet, on YouTube. And here is an answer to my question, that grasshoppers do indeed exist in Canada. And so this grasshopper is there, and I'm looking down at it, and I'm kind of thinking, well, I'm standing on the side of the street and there are cars passing. I wonder if people are thinking I'm crazy. But I'm just so tickled by it. So I giggle and I sort of straighten up and continue on. And as soon as I stand up, I see this giant rose bush that I always look at, and with all the orange seed pods all over it. And I start to laugh, and I think rose bush and grasshopper, and this property with the lots of birds, the aggressive birds that it's like these three things. If going back to what I said at the beginning, if you think of all the associations and the memories that we have in our brains stored away as a series of patterns, in my brain, Rosebush, whose name probably doesn't even mean rosebush, but that's how I know him as. So in my brain, he is stored away as, or associated with, rose bushes. And that was in my brain long before we had the conversation about grasshoppers. So Rosie makes this video, and we talk in the comment section, and suddenly I remember my childhood, grasshoppers, cats, and my cats would catch birds as well. And that memory, that vivid memory I had, is again associated with rosebush, because the memory came up as a result of our brief conversation on the internet. Then he says to me, I've never seen a grasshopper in Ireland. And I think, well, I've never seen a grasshopper in Canada. And that becomes associated with the other things I just mentioned. And I know I always walk past this property, and there's this giant rose bush, and it's prominent in my consciousness because every single time I pass it, I look at it and I think about it. I mean, there are other trees there, but I barely notice them, but this rose stands out for some reason. And so in my mind, it's associated with this property for some bizarre reason. Well, because of the rose bush, but it doesn't make sense normally, but that's how the brain associates things. So it seems almost inevitable that if I was going to see a grasshopper, that fertile medium called the physical world would produce the grasshopper at that location, because all the pieces fit together. They are all associated. So in a way, it's almost as if, I like to think of the world as a magical place, but it's almost as if the world is a brain in of itself, and it also forms associations between things and match things up, and that everything we experience and see is merely an associative connection. Do you get what I'm saying? And I hope it wasn't too far out for you guys, but just suspend disbelief for a minute and just allow yourself to just go to that place where you can imagine and you can test things out, and see how it feels, and see how, if you can find an event, something that happened to you that that is a meaningful coincidence where things sort of matched up, and you thought that was really spooky or weird. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for listening.